Okay, everyone, I'm about ready to get started. Welcome, Chris. Let's go into the Let's Chat. So according to the online event guide for this particular event, in theory, it will be ending today. What time? I have no idea. I have seen in other events in the past where it is extended beyond the event. Others do end on time. I still remember, I think it was from 2021 or is 2022 Valentine's Day, where the Valentine's Day's event accidentally got extended by a month. I remember finding that kind of amusing. Now, I would love if they accidentally extended this event for a couple days, but I have a feeling since this one has bigger bonuses, that will not be the case. So I figured, you know, I have plans in the afternoon. Why not just do an earlier stream? So I think the goal is to mostly just have fun and or try to take advantage of the drop rates. I'm thinking we'll do a mix of some private games with people that watch the stream and some public games. We're going to try something a little different. My goal at the moment is to get 9 coal. So I can get 9 coal in a lot of different ways. But once we do that, we're going to be playing totally different quests. I don't plan on doing more solstices today, or if the event's up tomorrow. I don't plan on playing them. And I might still play a fiasco, just because I do generally like the quest. But I have a feeling we'll be mixing it up with more like bosses from episode 4 and other kinds of things. It's been a while since we've seen like a maximum attack, and I do actually like the maximum attacks quite a lot. So I think for Chris's information, I'm probably just going to keep it simple and play a character that's good at episode 1. So I'm probably going to pick a ranger. I'm probably going to pick I guess I could play my Rumarl. I think that would be okay. So pair anybody you want with the Rumarl. We should be good to go. I'm just switching the character banks. We'll have a surprise about what I did with my force, the one I've been complaining about for multiple sessions. But we'll be showcasing what I did to the force. And we'll probably play with that character a little bit, actually. So that character's kind of fun. But I think for now, let me switch into the right character slot, and I will pause the music. So sorry, shopkeeper music. We are getting ready to get into the game. Speaking of which, I need to adjust the volume before I transfer it over, as it is deafeningly loud on my side. Or it was before I turned it down. Let me put it to a reasonable volume. Let's try that. Also, I will state, I tried slightly different arrangements for my menus. By menus, I mean like the Meseta tracker and stuff like that. I was noticing I was having some obscurity issues with when like the 3rd and 4th party members had buffs, which was not really a problem before because I only play with 2 people, but it became more apparent to me in the previous sessions that that was occurring. The XP meter, I did slightly move. It looks a little weird when it first loads, but once I'm in as a character, it's fine. I moved most of the item reader stuff to the left side, and I moved the monster reader up slightly. So that way it's more flush with the map. I'm kind of experimenting with that. I mean, if people really want to join Purple Solstice, I'm going to leave it very briefly as a public game. It is called Solstice, right? Or is it Snafu? My brain is thinking about it. Question mark, question mark, question mark. Let me check. It is called Solstice Snafu. Okay. I couldn't remember. I was like, I remember Snafu was part of it. So let people join. So I'll give them like a courtesy 20-30 seconds and then I'm moving on. I don't imagine many people will jump into this quest in particular. if I had picked a Christmas Fiasco 1, 4, or TTF, or Respective Tomorrow, I would imagine it would be just like an insta in. But at least I can say, hey, I technically made the game public, just not for very long. So I think I'm otherwise good to go. Let's just checking my materials out. I don't think I have anything new to show up from the last time that we streamed with this character. Oh, actually, there is one thing. It might not be in the character bank anymore. I might have put it in the other place. Must be in my share bank. I did find my other brand's launcher. I didn't hallucinate. I did have one with 20 hit. So I was gonna say, it felt like something that I had done a long time ago. I'm thinking about it. I'll try it with this character. She's got high enough accuracy that it will make up for things. See how I feel about it. I'm not getting shifted 30 though, so it might not be super worth. We'll see. Eventually I should use those crystals on those kinds of upgrades. Surprisingly, you know what? We've been streaming this for a few weeks now. Have I gotten a photon crystal drop? I think the answer to that is at most one. I know Chris has gotten one. I remember seeing that, but I don't think I picked up a photon crystal specifically from like enemy drops. I think the one that I got was from a present. Yeah. But I mean, it's been a while, and it's not that I don't play episode 4. So, bad luck with satellite lizards, I guess. Oh, I did slightly change this character's layout. I also didn't realize my Zalora was not enabled on this character, so that was a big oops. That is some good damage. I could see, like, if I had, like, a stronger shifted D-band, this would be mowing through them. I could see that. Especially if I gave this dark percentage. I mean, it's already doing 922. I am really surprised I dodged that, to be honest. So yeah, maybe I'll spend some time sphering it up a little bit. I'm always worried to use the sphere on something like a 30 hit Excalibur or like a 50 hit Vulcan, or not Vulcan in particular, but like, you know what I mean, like common 50 hits. Just because it's like, well, what if I get a 55? Then I just wasted the sphere. And that feels pretty terrible. Whereas if it's on like an enemy weapon, that feels a little more fair. Because I mean, like, then it's just my fault if it's not statted correctly. So I would be more inclined to pump that. I don't think weapons like Spread Needle are the best for it. The weapon itself has to have a decent ATP, or else the weapon percentages don't really mean anything. Like, if I do it on, if I get like 90 native on like a 60 ATP total Vulcan, like who cares? Like, oh no, I got 50 ATP, who cares? Meanwhile, you put that same percentage on like an Excalibur with like its 900 ATP, and it's like, oh, suddenly I got like almost 40% extra total ATP. Oh, and that starts to make a big difference. I will heal Chris's character and get bodied by Claw. Oh, the paralysis chance worked at least. Yeah, that takes forever if I'm not being optimal. Try to last one more often. Okay, don't need anything in here. Disappointing techniques. Not gonna pick them up. Uh-oh. I don't see Chris's character moving. Oh, I was worried more about desync on one of our parts, like one of us was getting booted. He's just probably looking at something. The fear was there, though. Just want the chat to know. I've been having some weird connections with the server. Not... Like, I've had internet issues, and sometimes I've had server issues. But, yeah, just some weird things. You don't have to say sorry, it's fine. I don't know if people that happen to be watching the video or happen to be in the Twitch chat at the moment have the same issue, but I know Discord for me has been super horrendous. Welcome, Shaky. Hope you're doing well. I decided to do an early stream. Coffee time? I was gonna say maybe for you, not for me. I don't know if I'm like one of the only people that has this opinion towards it, but I react super bad to caffeine. I had to basically just cut it out altogether. I mean, I hear people say all the time that like caffeine doesn't make you feel more awake, it just makes you feel less... It's not gonna make you feel as tired. I'm okay with the taste. But it's more like, wow, I had some super big crashes after coffee. I don't like the taste like on its own. I like it when it's, you know, if it's like mixed with something, I'll drink it, but I'll not just drink a normal coffee. I definitely won't drink a black coffee, for example. But no, I handle caffeine terribly. Your first spinal injection yesterday. That's pretty big news. Glad to hear you're feeling okay. Cream and sugar? Yeah, I think I took it with 2 cream and 1 sugar normally if I'm mixing my own. Yeah, I think at one point I remember somebody gave me, it's like one of those like, what is it called, like a frappuccino, after I was like on a long hike a few years ago, and no joke, I went to sleep instantly. It did not keep me awake. It's like I was done. It just boom. I fell asleep within like 10 minutes. So I feel like it doesn't work on me, and then I crash really hard once I'm off of it. Yeah, I was done. Frappuccinos will kill you. I was asleep instantly, Shaky. Just boom. All over. What an unfortunate time for buffs to wear off. There we go. So yeah, I'll have it like, if I have like craft beers and stuff like that, I don't mind the taste of it. But again, it has to be a little something else. Hopefully you're keeping warm, Shaky. Weather has been very strange here. Found Mahu. Interesting. Well, speaking of which, Chris's character has a improved Kasami bracer. We picked that up on semi-spoilers, the character that has not been revealed to the chat. We'll play that character at some point. I don't know if in the breakdown of the videos it'll be this video or not, but within this Twitch session it will be. A lot of damage is so fun. Weather's very strange here too. Giant snow melted by Wednesday, now it's melting usually. Yeah, I basically was like living in the town of Silent Hill a few days ago. It was like super foggy in the morning, then it went away, then at night it came back. So I definitely expected the horror monsters to come out. Lucky Northern Hemisphere, says Chris from Australia, where he is melting under the sun. Stay inside, practice your picky feet. Yeah, it's been kind of miserable for driving around. Fortunately, I've not had a huge need to do so recently, aside from work. But eventually, like later today, I will be. That is a really unfortunate spawn pattern. I'm not gonna hit both of them. Yeah, I knew that was gonna happen. If I was back slightly further, I don't think that would have happened. But now I'm at the mercy of the claws. But hopefully you've been having a good time, Shaky. I saw you playing some... I'm gonna say it's Valheim. I would give you a shout out if I wasn't being murdered. Oh, I got invincibility? Cool, now I can just pay attention to Shaky. How you doing, Shaky? Don't have to worry about them for like 20 seconds or so. Missed my invincibility. Or not invincibility, paralysis there. Valhalla, my bad. Yeah, I caught you playing a little bit of Monster Sanctuary. I'm still on the fence about it, how I would feel about it. I think there's aspects of it. I think the chat would definitely like it. I just don't know if it's a game for me. I'm like very on the fence about it. I think from like a technical standpoint, I don't see any issues with it. I just usually don't play like collect a monster games. But it looked fun from what I was watching. It was neat to see, I think you and Calvicium were playing it. So I was watching the randomizer version, which is what Shaky was playing. A friend of the stream, Calvicium, was going through for the first time. Fortunately, you only need their follow powers. Interesting. Yeah, I was seeing that it enabled different movement as you went through a dungeon. So, 1 second. So for Chris, I know there's a delay. I do have Mag Blast. There we go. I did it. I gave the shout out. So we could use that on next wave. As long as it's not Sorcerer. Yeah, as long as it's not Sorcerer, we can just use it in this wave. I'm fine with using it this wave. There we go. See? Game name captured on the chat for everybody to reference. Yeah, other than that, you know, I think I saw Shaky kind of incidentally in other streams. I think I saw you were ensuring God's child enjoyed mayhem. You made sure he was practicing his swimming skills, I believe. He was very thrilled about it. So that was interesting. He never got this logo guy bomb. That's interesting. Yeah, I was watching him play. I was a little confused. I wonder if he didn't update the bot. I saw the commands that were coming out were like from the old version. Like, it was still saying, like, when you were doing, like, major equipment and stuff like that, it was still saying 2 different commands. I'm like, I'm pretty sure that wasn't there, because we tested that pretty thoroughly. Because I reworked how that whole system evaluates things, but... I mean, at least the old version still worked with the new stuff, so that's fine. It is supported, Shaky, but I made it a bit, I would say more in control of the person who's playing. So like right now it was using my like default prices like in the older version. But that's so if the player playing it adjusts it, so let's say they make it higher or lower, it never touches the original price. So that would cause some issues with if people have lower rates or higher rates, the balance doesn't quite work out. So I just made it like a percentage base. Like if you choose to do a major item, it's just a % more of what the underlying item is. Yeah, see that was the problem with it. So I decided, because it wasn't exposed to them to modify in the previous version, I said, you know what, I really don't feel like doing UI for this. Also, that was a unlucky pattern. I got double Del Saber into Indie Bora blocking me. Side note there, it was just unlucky. But yeah, so going forward in the new bot, it will scale. So if you do major items, I think it's like 40% more than the normal cost of items. But if you were to do like something like minor items, it costs like, I think, 20% less. Because it removes like the RNG from it. Because a lot of the balance of those points were the fact that it is randomly going to be worse or better. So if you purposely pick one that is powerful, I wanted the price to reflect appropriately. So, I mean, fortunately it seemed fun. I saw some weird things on his game, but I don't think some of those will be updatable by me. Some might be addressed in some performance changes I'll be doing in the next couple patches. I saw he got wedged into... He was doing some really weird things in the underground, to be honest. I don't think I've ever tried misting, for example, out of the reverse... Or not reverse, out of the spike room and back up to the other chamber. When are things not weird? It's true. That is part of the appeal. Yeah. I mean, like, there's all sorts of ways to soft lock yourself even before, like, the new commands. Like, a lot of that is not new. The only one that I saw that was new to me was, he ended up in the room before Grand Falloon, and he used Mist Wall in Turbo, and Underwater was active, and it put him in the wall. Which I thought was interesting. Oh, we fought a couple of those, I think, on stream, Shaky. I don't think chat bailed me out on one of the times. I did almost die, from what I recall. I know Calvisham also fought one, and he almost got killed by it. It was pretty close. No, it doesn't dupe it, but it makes the core really tough. So what'll end up happening is you can, like, troll with, like, summon, potentially. So, like, the zombies that end up spawning in the bottom can kill the shell, but not kill the core, because the core has so much more health now. So you'll actually see it do its laser attacks. Calvisham got to experience that briefly. It was something. Oh yeah, that boss was like, I was like, oh man, the laser's home? This is just nonsense. It would be the hardest stone boss in the game if it had more health, or if it started like that. I'm like, what? We're like, Galamoth? Whatever, we figured him out. Homing lasers? I don't know about that. We'll see. Actually, I should just frozen shooter. How did my fireball hit the same target twice? Or is Chris hitting it for 147? I'm actually confused. Did my one Gafoe hit them like 5 times? What was that? Gafoe, please. Weird. Yeah, I was watching it, like, it got hit by 147. Like, I purposely did not hit it, and it did 147. I'm like, why? Nothing on my screen was being hit, but desync could have occurred. You enjoy doing it as a challenge? It's interesting. It's kind of like the other day. Whose stream was I watching? It wasn't Calvisham, but it was somebody else was doing certain, like, in the racing community. So not like some, like, Joe Nobody. And they, like, were really surprised at the fact that Trio, when you kill 2 out of the 3 Trio members, they get new attacks. I was like, wait, you didn't know that? I was like, oh, big mistake. You left Sypha live of all the characters? Oh, you're in trouble. GG. She also has a nasty spell when she's the last person alive. So if I'm playing Mayhem, I'm like, oh, she's brutal. Oh, that was Calvisham? Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, that Sypha attack is something else. You know what I didn't realize the first time I did this quest? Did you know you could just walk out of this room? You don't even have to do the hallway. I don't think I showed that off. Like, you can just skip the hallway. Yeah, we don't have to do this hall. I mean, I'll do it anyway. But yeah, it's not even required. Kind of funny. I don't know if that was intentional or a bug. Sometimes you can't... Oh, Rare Lily on purple ID? Wait a minute. Hold on, is this about to be the greatest Christmas miracle of all time? Is it gonna happen? I don't see any ticker at the top, so it didn't happen. Rest in peace. Absolute sadness. So to clue Shaky in, there is an extraordinarily rare enemy that can drop something that is one of the rarest items in the game. And I happen to have everything needed for it to happen, but nope, didn't happen. If it's considered a certain tier of rare items, it'll pop a banner at the top. So even if Chris didn't tell me if he got it, he can't lie about it. The whole server would know. I know. I think this is the first time on stream, this entire event, we've seen that enemy on this ID. We've seen that enemy one other time, I think before, and I remember being mad because I'm like, why can't it just do it to me when I'm on purple ID? I think it's a 1 in 128 chance by default. It's been a while since I looked it up. I could be incorrect on that number, but I know it is not a great number. I will put it that way. So it already has like a barely, I don't know, I'm just spitballing here, but let's say hypothetically a 3% chance to replace one of the existing enemies of the Lily type. So it's like, it's 2 really bad rare numbers together to even have a chance. Like, I could do this quest like 30 times, Shaky, and not see that enemy once. Like, it could be really bad. Speaking of really bad, I have a Photon Blast. I should probably use it. So if it's not Lily, I'll use it. I'll use it. Oh, you're at 79? Never mind. JK, pulling your leg. Oops, didn't debuff first. So yeah. Reminds you of Shining Hunting? Something like that. I didn't play the later Pokemon, but I am aware. But it's the same principle. But when it's a rare enemy, it can change the drops. Not every enemy has a rare component. I wish that they actually did, honestly. It would have made like certain episodes a lot more fun to farm. Just to say, like, you know, you could get more random enemy variety. They wouldn't even have to do anything special. Yeah, like, even if it was just the reskin, like, some enemies do get completely different behaviors. For example, like, the lilies get a better version of Megid, so they can shoot their death ray, essentially, at a further distance. But they also buff the other lilies in the room. It's kind of interesting. But we usually kill them before we let them do their advanced attacks. Ooh. Where's the other lily? Oh, there it is. But yeah, this game has a lot of that. Mostly today, I'm looking to hopefully get materials, although now that I'm streaming, I seem to have zero luck with it. I think Chris and I were just playing prior to the stream, and I think we got like upwards of 20 total materials in this quest. I think I picked up a grand total of 3? Maybe? Some of that I might have been holding before. So it's looking pretty bad, I will state. Yeah. I mean, ideally I would get 1 material a room, which are kind of like your permanent stat ups. But oh well, it is what it is. Maybe this quest is just horrible, I don't know. Just in terms of like rares. Yeah, but I mean, like, even in general, like, I ran this quest for like an hour and a half last week, and I got literally 4 total materials, I think, or 3. Whereas I do like literally just Tyrells, and I end up with like 12 before I leave Forest. It's kind of weird. It's all luck of the draw. I'm assuming it's not a bug with the new quest, but it is what it is. Oh yeah, speaking of which, Shaky, hopefully you've been enjoying trying to summon the flying zombie. I called it the bloody zombie by accident in Discord, but you knew what I meant. Adds a little more variety to the second castle. Goodbye, random enemies. Oops. Goodbye aiming, apparently. So yeah, I'm just kind of looking in general for, you know, quality of life changes or things like to have weird interactions to kind of clean them up. So I think the goal is to just go through Axe Armor after the stream. Oh, speaking of materials. Complain and you shall receive. There we go. You have PB now? Nice. We'll let you enjoy Mag Invincibility a bit longer, though. Oh, speaking of which, why is my player 2-1 so offset like that? I definitely need to fix that later. Maybe made it to the big times. Something like that. So yeah, I think so far most people have been enjoying the Hex Confused. So I'm pretty happy with how that turned out. The people's reactions when they see the backwards wing smash is just something else. It achieves its only goal, which is to confuse people. Yeah, we can Mag Blast this room. It's fun. That's definitely my new favorite thing. Yeah, I wanted to compensate for removing weapons from, or removing the disarm effect from Hex. And I think that's a pretty appropriate one. I think the overall goal is just to figure out how to make people menu a bit less. So expect some changes to be involving that. I want game time to be not spent in the menus, but spent like actually doing things. So probably a tweak to unarmed based off a couple suggestions. It kind of is. It's pretty hard to use sub-weapons when you're like that, and switching between that and normal attacks is crazy. Like, trying to go forward, but also attack the right way is interesting. So, I don't know. I have to think about any other quality of life changes. I'm gonna keep the patch kind of small this time. I meant to keep this one small, but it was just like, you know what? I'll just make supers of every action. Then after that, it'll be focusing a lot on the axe armor again. I was playing around with the concept of adding a item timer. Like when you use items, so that way you have a visual representation of how long it'll take. I'll retake your suggestion in a moment. Unfortunately, there is a lot of things on screen. Alright, let's read what Chicky has to say. So it explicitly know when their Vlads are only temporarily taken away. Oh, well, I can't help GC on that one. To me, the Vlad thing is okay to be confused about briefly. It comes back in the save rooms. I don't know how else to say, like, the word unarmed is on there. I don't know what people would think unarmed would mean if you could just re-equip yourself. That's a GC thing. Yeah. Like, the Hex Relics, I could kind of see, maybe, because they're thinking it doesn't include Vlad. Like, I'm willing to give more of a pass for that. I don't think I could give a pass for unarmed. Trying to think if... I don't know. I want to think about if I could put another message. I don't want to clutter, like, the notification. It's possible... It's possible when I temporarily remove a relic, I could make it a different color. So I would say that's a very fair and valid suggestion. I would have to look into it a bit more. I'm not going to say no, but I'm going to look into it. To make it just like, I don't know, instead of it being the gray color, it could be like... Again, I would have to think about it. It's not a bad idea. I'll think about it. In terms of if it wants to be black or gray or... Yeah, I did see that while you were playing. You were making those comments to him. Making sure that Rappy dies. The focus was intense for a moment. But from the standpoint of like those kinds of things, maybe I could touch up the relic tracker. UI is not my forte, but I'll guess like look. I don't know. I'll take a look at some hex colors and see what makes sense on the list. Ah, controller. Don't do that. I mean, yeah, that's why I was thinking, like, it... Because I think right now it's kind of like an off gray, so it's like, I don't know if I want to do black, because then you might have trouble identifying it. Maybe a green would work. Again, it's a very valid suggestion. Let me ensure, Shaky, to make sure that you are listened to. I'm going to not even move in PSO for a moment. No, I'd not like to update this. We're going to go ahead. Hex Relic. Changes tracker relic color. Parentheses green, yellow. Followed by a question mark because I need to figure out a hex. That looks okay. There we go. It's officially added. We'll call it the shaky buff. Yeah, I think one thing kind of going along the lines of what you're saying there, like one of the things I wanted to convey and why I was talking about like the timer on the item cooldown is I wanted to give more like visual indicators to the player, not necessarily the people watching the stream, but more importantly just knowing like, oh, when can I use items again? One other thing, because I'm looking into the timers anyway, is I want to see if I can pause the timers in certain rooms. So that way you don't get scammed. I'm thinking what I would also do is if I'm able to pause the timer, for example, like consistently, I'm probably going to pause things like ambush and summon. So there aren't like a million things when you pop out of the menu, but it'll freeze the timer. then that would be a good compromise, I think, for me. Yeah, like, there's certain rooms where, like, I think it's okay for it to tick down. But then there's others where it's really not. Like, the clock room, I want to pause, like, literally everything. Save room is debatable. There's some I want to pause, some I don't want to pause. Like, I would not want to pause buffs in save rooms, necessarily. But I might pause debuffs in that room. Thinking about it. But for areas that are so universally command-locked, I don't think it makes sense. Because, like, for example, when you enter the save room, all the hex commands turn off already, so it would just make sense to just pause the timer, if able. Because the effect isn't active. Some of the buffs might also do the same thing. I'll think about it. We'll just kind of feel how it impacts the gameplay. I think most commands should not pause when you're in the menu. Unless it's horrific. If it's horrific, I'm like, no. The people paid for it, they want to see it. Good buffs like regen or whatever, I don't care if they tick while it's paused. But at the same time, I'm worried it'll create an inconsistency and confuse people. So this is something I have to kind of think about. Like, there's a lot of ways to balance it, but what would make sense and feel fair? Speaking of makes sense and feels fair, Calvation, we were just talking about Mayhem. So hopefully you're doing well, Calvation. Yeah, we're looking to... Well, I have to look more into, like, the hex codes for Axe Armor to see what visual effects... I want to give visual effects, for example, when you're doing certain things like faceplant and just other kind of actions, just to make it a bit more unique. Like, if you're in Momentum, if I could get, like, some kind of partial glowy effect or something around the character, like smoke trails, which is what Alucard can do anyway. Kind of interesting. But hopefully you're doing well, Calvation. Don't worry, it's a very casual Let's Chat. We don't need to talk about PSO. Wait a minute, hold on. We need to talk about PSO for a moment. The door closed on me and didn't let me go through. I've never seen that before. I'm not gonna call that a bug, but that was interesting. Normally the door auto opens from quite a distance away and you walk through it, but the door actually stopped me from going through it. That might be a PSO first, maybe? You're doing okay? I'm doing okay-ish. I didn't sleep all that great, but, you know, we're here. Doing some things. Wrapping up a quest. We were talking about you, Calvation, with Monster Sanctuary and Mayhem. So definitely in terms of feedback from the people that I would say are more active runners of it, I'm interested to see what kinds of changes people would be interested in. Like, for example, the last patch in particular was focused a lot on Chrysogrim. Because Chrysogrim does like to play Mayhem, and he ends up finding some very interesting things. So some of it is bug fixes, some of it is just quality of play. Trying to farm your dad for money in real life, says Shaky. No comment on that one. Oh, they're playing CF4? I wanted to do that at some point. AKA Christmas Fiasco 4. Good things, I hope? Probably. Probably a small nerf to Underwater. But... well, I guess it might be more net neutral. I'm gonna put it more as net neutral. I'm not gonna declare it a nerf. I might also see if I can update the backdash speed with Underwater to make it feel more horrendous in exchange, but we'll see. We love editing emotes. I was gonna say, I made them very cheap, so even if you are not a subscriber, I went as low as Twitch would let me go. If I could, I would just make everything 1 point for you guys. So I'm like, I don't necessarily want you spending stuff on it, point-wise or otherwise. Yeah, I feel like it's in a lot better place. I feel like some of the more problematic commands were nerfed. And some of the commands that I feel were not strong enough were buffed, both in terms of negative effects and positive effects. Put the sunglasses on the troll face one, nice. Yeah, I think, like, there's still some unfortunate jank when it comes to, like, ambush or summon. I will nerf one summon off of the list. I forgot to do that in the previous patch. We'll call that streamer issue. Specifically, you know what? Shaky would be able to have my back on this one. In the floating catacombs, there's the old man with the lantern. I will remove that enemy from the summoner list. I do not remember his name. I think he has 110 health. Yeah, loss off. Thank you, Shaky. I was gonna say, you play with the fairy scroll. I had a feeling. This is where it comes in handy. Flex on that lore, Shaky. You got it. That does sound correct to me. So yeah, anything where it can spawn a projectile, I want to nerf. With the exception of the gremlins. Because I just find that funny more than anything else, and it doesn't really harden the player. It's kind of like when we banned bomb armor, because it was just so ridiculously unfair as a summon. But yeah, overall, I've been really enjoying some of the changes to Summoner, like, both in the way that they look different than the ambush enemies. Like, yeah, they're random color, but if you play the game enough, you can actually see which one is which. Which is something I enjoy, where I'm like, oh, I'm rewarded for actually paying attention to what colors they are. Oh, I'm fully ready for, like, Dragon or something disappointing, don't worry. It's okay. Favorite bomber is the one that exists only when he throws bombs on the ceiling. Oh, hold on, guys. I paid Sega. I got invincibility so I could read the chat again. Speaking of which, debuff time. I will state, though, if chat can think of any other enemies that might be fair, emphasis on fair to duplicate. Oh yeah, there we go. We got the nice little freeze frame on the boss as it dies. I'm willing to add it. Like, for example, I felt like ambush was not strong enough in the second castle. Oh, the game has no idea what to do. Oh, it got really confused there. Hope chat saw that. There's no boss on screen. We're able to move. It just had no idea. Poor game. Stone Rose, dude. It's funny that you say that. I wonder what would happen if I duped it. Shaky, I'm writing it down. I'm gonna write this as experiment. I'm not gonna guarantee this one will go in, but Stone Rose and Diplo, or whatever its name is. I mean, we can make that hallway actually do something in ambush. Summon works the same as ambush? No, not anymore. It actually doesn't. Summon, it has been coded so that it's more helpful. So I'll give I guess a more technical overview, but it helps to understand, like, the differences between the two. So for ambush has a certain radius around the player. It is not allowed to spawn things. Now, that is not true in the older version of Chaos. It could spawn literally anywhere, including in you, which I thought was ridiculously unfair. So I put a certain distance it can spawn to the left and right, where it has to be at least that distance away, and it has to go way above you if it's going to be above you. If it's going to be below you, it could be a little closer. Generally, that doesn't provide a huge issue. Sometimes it provides a little bit of, like, a floor trap. It's not too bad. Diplocephalus, thank you. But basically, it'll go to either end of the screen, and that's that. Now, Summon will do the same thing where it pulls the room for enemies. However, right now, it only spawns things in front of you, because 90% of the time, if you're looking at something and you want to fight it, that's where you would want your summon to go. So as soon as you face left, let's say you're dead center in the screen, which is very common in Soden, more than half the screen can now no longer spawn anything. And now, instead of it being anywhere between the top and the bottom of the screen, it's an even more restricted range. So it'll prefer to go above you slightly, because it's more likely to cover ground if it falls, for example, from above you to where you are. It covers more ground. And even if it needs, and generally speaking, if you need to kill something below you and you're looking at, let's say, like the staircase in the outer wall, if it spawns up or down, it's still ultimately going to keep falling and cover you anyway. And I think that has been pretty useful in terms of making Summoner actually do something. I didn't really use the Brand's Launcher, unfortunately. So Summon, I feel like, has been extremely buffed. I have not seen Summon been used so far and not gotten at least 2 to 3 kills, where it on itself has killed something. Because now it will no longer do things like, originally it could spawn behind you, but if you were, you know, in the middle of the screen, as you normally are in Soten, and you go, let's say, left at a high speed, if the enemy spawns on the right side of the screen, you take like 2 backdashes and they're not on screen, which is not very useful. So the intent of that was to make it so that, like, where you are facing it will put it. Now, I think the exception is if you're in the backdash animation, it will spawn it behind you in preference. However, there's a brief state between when you shield and when you use backdash that it will potentially spawn behind you. It's not perfect, but at least it's still better than what the old system was. If you're actually fighting like a boss or something, it's super good. It did kill Grand Falumi and almost kill me for it. Yeah, exactly. See, that was on purpose. I put it on purpose because you don't normally fight a boss backwards in order to deal with it. So, proof that Summoner did something. Proof. So we'll do like 2 more Solstices, I'm thinking. Again, I'll make it a public game for people that want to join. But the window to join is short. So I'm going to keep the flow going. So I guess I'll sell some of these items while I'm waiting. But yeah, in general, like, when you're going through the long haul, like, for example, with the bloody zombies, it's way more likely to kill them now in scenarios like that, where they're on varying elevation, and there's not, like, a huge enemy density. So, I don't know. I feel pretty happy with how it is. Like, it might be improved slightly over the next couple patches, but it is so much better. Because I felt like people were doing it before, and it would just, like, legit never hit anything due to how it was coded before. And I was like, I really need to think about it from, like, a logic standpoint of what it needs to do. And that's like most of what it is. Like, if people are able to articulate in a logical sense what you're looking to do, that's fine. Like, the mechanical or the technical sense of how it is able to check those things, like looking at states, is something for me to code. But for people to just offer a suggestion, it would just be like, do that. We do 1% chance of ambush, but nothing but fleet riders. I wish you could spawn enemies outside of their designated area. They don't work correctly, unfortunately. Otherwise, I would be spawning certain bosses. But you know, that technically also means, like, for example, when you fight Doppel, I think there's nothing that really stops you from duplicating Doppel and spawning him outside of his boss area. Like, I think that's technically doable. Could you imagine if you're just doing, like, the Flea Rider check and just Richter just, like, shoulder tackles you out of existence? Be quite something. Oh. We're lined up a little bit. Summoner Doppel. I'm honestly contemplating about trying that. I'm gonna put that down. Doppel / bosses, question mark. Okay. I think that would be very unique. Could you imagine, like, I'd probably have to put, like, a hard limit. I imagine the game would freak out if I had, like, 20 Doppels. But it'd be pretty funny. Del Saber, what are you doing here? Okay, let's nerf them so Chris doesn't die. There we go. I think I almost have the amount of coal that I need. I think that was 3 for the clear. I need 9. So our goal is to do this quest 2 more times. And then I guess we'll say goodbye to this quest for the year. Yeah, just like kind of little things like that. We'll see. I'm still working out some of the nuances of like rewind. I think that's something that will probably take several patches to just keep going through. Because I don't think anybody's really studied the behavior of that code, like at all. At least I have never seen any documentation on such things. So I know like Gon's Child is looking into it to potentially change the starting location of a character. Like he and I have talked about that, and I've even mentioned it on stream a couple times. The fact that you can just begin the game in a random location is quite amusing. He would probably chase you, but that wouldn't necessarily be a bad thing, because you could probably bait him into walking into things. Chris got the murdered. Uh-oh. Chris is trolling. No escape doll. Alright, well, I have to go rescue him. 1 second, chat. Where's escape dolls? Mm-hmm. Still have 2 on this character, right? Yeah, 2. But yeah, I just want to experiment with it. What happens if you try to spawn a boss? I don't think multi-part bosses will work correctly. I don't think I could really get Galamoth outside of his room, for example. I don't think he would load correctly. I could probably spawn just his leg or something weird. I don't know what that would do to the game. But maybe one day we'll sit there and just try to see what happens when you spawn things that are not appropriate. I do have a better function for testing that in real time. So like, as long as I can grab the ID of whatever's on screen, I could just spawn it without needing to like program anything. Which is kind of nice. Yeah, outside of like visual effects for axe armor, and just if people are able to find more out about how some of the weird functions work, like elevators, etc., like what you would have to fix on them so that they accepted you being able to do it while in a summon, quote unquote. I'm not sure how much there is to update. Now there could be like a big feature if I want to do co-op. But the people that were asking for it, I haven't seen in a while. So that makes me feel less motivated to work on that, because I don't know how much I would use the feature. I think it would be cool, but like, I don't know. I don't see like a whole ton of people running like axe armor, and like I really like axe armor, but like if people aren't like actively playing it, I don't know how much time I want to dedicate towards it. Not saying like I won't go back to it, but it'll go downwards in priority. Yeah, I definitely got Sotened out last year, so I'm happy I took like a 2-month break. The rebuff curse. Well, at least these waves are mostly innocent, I suppose. Not seeing anything too atrocious. Now, if it was like double Indie Bell or a double Del Saber, I would frown at the wave for sure. This wave's acceptable. Easy kill. Man, her pistol animation is so fast. Nice. I guess to bring Calvisham into the conversation from earlier. Do you drink coffee, Calvisham? We were having a big discussion on that just prior to your arrival. I have sometimes touched it, but it's like, I don't have a good history with it. How do you prefer your coffee, Calvisham? I got slapped in the face. I deserve that. Anyway, I got PB, by the way, Chris. Forgot to mention. Oh, unlucky. Oh, you drank it black. That is, you're a braver man than I, Calvisham, to do that. Oh no, I'm getting knocked down. I'm gonna say ew to this knockdown. Get him off me. I didn't see Chris mention it in PB. If he mentioned it, I was like, oh, hello. Oh, you have diabetes? Sorry to hear that, Calvisham. Well, I guess as long as you're able to manage it, that's good. I meant to ask you, Calvisham, since you've been playing Monster Sanctuary, were you thinking of trying the randomizer for it at all? My diabetes being unlocked to have survivabilities. Life philosophy from Shaky. Oh, it dropped Guardiana, but no hit percentage. Oh, what a heartbreaker. Like an actually good rare, it needs hit percentage. I would say at least 30. It doesn't have to be 50. I would do 30. Brutal. Rest in peace, rare. I will only junk you. It's like a great special, decent ATP. But now it is just 10 team points. Sacrifice to the team point gods. Randomizer meta setup, rise up. There was like, I'm not gonna do it like right away, but there were a couple of mods and such to games we played before on stream. I might give them a shot at some point. I was gonna say, Calvisham, you're trying to figure out what requires. You have a expert in the chat to ask questions. Because Shaky's been playing through quite a few randomizer. Shaky's gonna give you the 4-1-1 on everything. Yeah, see, there we go. Shaky has been deployed. Ooh, getting bounced around. That's bad. Let me heal Chris. In a PlayStation chat, interesting. Yeah, there are a few chat selected games. I'm trying to think what the right time would be to play them, but they've been purchased. Just got to figure out the right day to do them. There's going to be quite a few, I think, towards the end of the year, for sure, that the chat has picked out. And I promise several of them are on the list that were in my Discord. But it's just finding the right time for it. Think about it. I think after we're done with Suikoden, like the whole series, I think we'll do some chat appreciation stuff. Well, I mostly be trying to get new monsters for the skills. I imagine so, but I mean, I guess since you could get them out of order, it'd be kind of neat because you get stuff like the flight early, so you would skip a need for a lot of them. But I imagine if you need certain ones to open crystals or whatever, probably still needed. Yeah, exactly. I imagine you would be able to go in like the reverse entrance. Because I saw a lot of things in that game were like height locked. So if you were able to fly, you could just come in through the back door and not really care. It's kind of an annoying group of enemies. Let's deal with them with a gun, like this. Say hello to Spread Needle. Goodbye, enemies. Ooh, almost goodbye me. You see, really? 5 indie Belras? Really? What is this? What is this spawn? Let's 2 down. Just oops all Belra today, apparently. Ooh. Some kind of banner at the top. CF4, no force. Ooh, no force? I mean, I guess if they have raw Mar, maybe it's okay. I just can't imagine trying to do enough damage without Shifta of some variety. Some people like to do it as a challenge. Just to say, like, they want to give, like, viability to, like, your raw Mar, for example. Or they find that forces don't add enough in a 4-player game. Like, one of the 2 statements I just said are true, probably. Because, like, what'll happen is, like, if you have a dedicated ranger as your 4th character versus a force, they'll benefit more from the photon blast than a force would. They have better weapons, and they could probably do, like, the bare minimum needed so that you could get past the kill threshold. Well, that's a almost very unfortunate spawn. Got through it, though. So yeah, so it gives an excuse for like your Hugh New Rolls and Ramarls to actually be dedicated and in there. It's like an okay clear time for the first area. Speaking of which, I have the right thing on still. Yeah, I do. The pan arms here is such a troll. This enemy is a big waste of time. I kind of wish this wasn't in the event. This enemy is just so horribly slow in single player. The fact you could get like 8 of them in the run is just awful. I think that was my only complaint. I wish they replaced the pan arms with Grass Assassin. I think this quest would have been like perfect if they did that, because I don't think there's a single pan arm rare that anybody wants ever. Whereas Grass Assassin has Shurin, potentially. That's like an actual real drop. But I won't. Maybe I'll educate myself. Maybe there's some obscure pan arms drop I just don't remember. But it's definitely not up to the caliber of your V101s, your V801s, etc. Not as universal, for sure. Yeah, when it comes to, I don't know, future games, you know, I have some plans definitely for the weekday games. Weekend games, I know exactly what I'm going to get into. But definitely want to hear from the chat in terms of things to kind of get more people playing, like people are watching currently, but for people that do want to join in to find like a good game for that kind of thing. I'm not gonna say I'm gonna go to the level of like purely a party game. Like I don't think I would be a Jackbox player, for example. But something with some co-op. Yeah, yeah, Jackbox is not for me, for sure. Goodbye, slimes. Who knows, chat? Maybe we'll see Rare Lily. That'll wake me up again, I promise. Yeah, it's just, you know, some of it's like, I'm gonna say culture. Culture's not the right word, but I feel like generation-wise, I never got into that kind of thing. Like, that's not what I grew up playing with. So it's just kind of... There could be some very not safe for stream things that can end up on there. So I'd rather not get myself into potential jeopardy with that. I could avoid that. It would be nice. But yeah, just like, think about some choices. I think I've been invited to a couple things to potentially co-op in the year. Probably except one or two of them. But really, it's like, you know, it's kind of like finding the right difference between, like, if there is a personal server or somebody's hosting from a server, something like PSO would be doable, right? Because lag is not so much of an issue if it's something centralized versus, like, peer-to-peer. But when it comes to what would be beneficial to people watching and able to get into it, it has to be like a somewhat simple game. I know things like Terraria, Minecraft are pretty popular, easy to join in, pick up and play, kinds of things, and allows people to express creativity. I'm not sure if there's a game like sort of that nature that I would play. I would have to think about it. I did play Terraria a long time ago. Chris got excited when I said Terraria. I think the problem with those kinds of games is I really need a goal. If I can't find that goal, I generally won't play the game. So, like, for example, if you give me, like, a Skyrim, and you just leave me out in the middle of nowhere, I'm like, I'm gonna go not play this. I kind of want more structure to it. We'd all play Harmony of Despair. The brain is processing. Is that the console multiplayer Castlevania? What does not help is that the initials for that are the same as the Game Boy one. So my brain was trying to think. I think Harmony of Dissonance was the Game Boy one. Also, seriously, why did they call two different things Harmony? Could they have used something else? I don't have it for any system though. Isn't that also like really hard to get? Like you can't get it with DLC anymore because it's not on the store. I thought that was a thing. Goodbye, slime. You can get it with DLC. Okay, interesting. I thought it was taken down like a year or two ago. Costs you like 60, you don't want to talk about it? That's fair. I saw a couple of people streaming it. It seems okay. Take that die fluid though. I got Mag Blast again. Probably use it in this room if you have it. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, like, I would have to think about other kinds of topics in terms of, like, what games would fit into those kinds of things. Wrong weapon, that's fine. Daylight Scar is still pretty powerful. So we'll see. I'm not so much into the competitive games, like, at all. I tried it once. Did not like it. I think that age of gameplay for me is officially over. Just really rather not compete against people anymore. Nice level up. Fortnite? No, I would be pretty terrible at it. I grew up on console shooters, so I am super bad on PC shooters. Super bad. If I was gonna play like something that would be like quasi-competitive, it would probably... Oops, I missed the lily. I think it would probably be something like obscure that I doubt people have played. In the chat specifically, not that just people in general haven't played it. So I played what's it called? Let me think about the English title. Clash of Ninja 4. Before they switched over to the Wii. The Naruto fighting game. Play Unholy War for PS1. I don't think I've heard of it. I think I recall looking at it briefly, but I don't remember any of the gameplay. I will say that I could not tell you if it was a early PS1 RTS or RPG or first person. I have no idea. Not even gonna attempt to guess. Goodbye, Mr. Panarms. Kind of on autopilot with the quest at the moment. My brain is thinking, what other games could be introduced at some point that have co-op? I guess if Endless Dungeon ever comes out with its sequel-ish kind of game, I would probably play that on stream. But it has been quite some time. I mean, I guess I could even just play the one that I played of the Endless series, Endless Dungeon itself. It does have co-op, it's just very finicky. I did used to play that with people like 2-3 years ago. Your PS4 loads it so slowly that you hit the loading zone in Valhalla. That's a little concerning. I will also be honest, I think there are some companies I will just straight up not play games from. Either from principle or from being just extremely disappointed in the last games that I played from them. And then I'm officially done with said company. I feel like that's what kind of turned me off of console gaming in general. That was one of the major things. I think it's just the end of an era, I think is the best way to phrase it. Where I just don't see why, at this point, if I would get a console, when almost everything is available on PC, and now it's not hard to get a decent PC. Like before, you know, like the PCs were going through so many like revolutionary updates every 5 years, like the RAM and the gigs, you know, floppy into disk drives, into DVD players. Like they were going through a lot of changes, and that was definitely a big ask. Comparing like a Windows 95 to a 2000 to even like a 2010 computer, so they're very vastly different from each other. Now I think we kind of not really changed for quite some time. We have better resources for sharing games between computers. We have like cloud backups. We have massive storage and like HD drives if we really want to spend the money. Just, I don't know. They make you pay for online now for consoles. That was like one of the benefits of the PS3 era of things, is that you had free services, but you had like the premium model. Now it's just all pay to use. Like, I don't know. Like, I'm someone that's not really gonna move a console that often, so I'm like, if I'm not gonna move it from the room, like, why wouldn't I just use the PC for that same purpose? And that's just how I felt about gaming for the past 6 years, I guess, at this point. And I've yet to really feel differently about it. I miss the PS3 days. Yeah, I mean, it's just like, you know, I go to look back at companies in terms of like what kinds of games they used to produce that were console exclusive. And like almost all those series are canceled. Like, I really struggled to think of like an ongoing series. And then on top of that, like, if it is a returning series, was it as good as it was on PS2, PS3? And honestly, that list is extraordinarily slim. Like, I know the most recent example I can think of that would fall into the latter category would be Valkyrie Profile. I was really thoroughly not impressed with their latest model on Elysium. But if I want to play like a Sengoku Basara, if I want to play like an Onimusha, if I want to play, just name anything Capcom related, they're basically into just Monster Hunter, Resident Evil. I don't play either of those, but the people that enjoy the series, great. I'm not one of them. So they've lost me as the consumer. I don't know. Those kinds of games just don't appeal to me. I don't know if it's like upgrade easily, but like this PC that I've been using, I've had for more than 5 years. So I'm already out of like the console life cycle of the modern era. And I make it do all these other things. And I also spend less on games, because I do stuff on Steam sales or other options. So I very rarely pay anything anywhere close to retail full price. Granted, you know, if you don't purchase things on sale when they're in Steam, it will at points be much more expensive on Steam than physical disc. Looking at you, Tales of Berseria, that is like $49.99 in the year 2023. Makes no sense. But sometimes you can get some good deals. Pretty poor. I don't see you getting an upgrade from PS4 Pro that costs you $250. Well, I mean, like the consoles nowadays are now like, aren't they going for 500, 600 plus? Like, they're not that cheap from what I recall, unless I'm like woefully misinformed with like the latest PS5 stuff. Maybe it was just due to the shortages and the prices are down now. But I remember the prices being crazy. I was like, if I'm gonna spend that much and on all those controllers, I would rather just get a laptop. Because that's where they also get you. Like, the Switch itself was like not... I did not pay $300 for the Switch. But you bet they nickel and dime me on every controller and every peripheral. And that was literally double the console price. Or it ended up being double the console price. Yeah. Like, I would say I probably spent almost $500, $600 on the Switch total if you count the controllers. There's such a ripoff for co-op. And it's like, I don't have to worry about that for PC. If I have a controller that worked 10 years ago or 20 years ago, I'm still using it. Yeah, like sometimes, you know, if we're talking about outside the US, there's like tariffs and there's also other things to think of. But like from a US perspective, like for $800, which is honestly not that far off if you were getting multiple controllers for a console system, I could make it play more than just a limited library of games. And I would be able to take it with me more easily. I mean, and if you're willing to go to the point of making your own computer, then you will get a vastly superior thing to the console. But even if you're just buying, like, what would be the retail PCs, I still feel like that would be true. Like, with that price, would you be able to run it, like, 4K? Probably not on most things, but I don't know. I'm one of those people where I just don't care about that, like, that level of depth. So, I don't know, maybe that'll be your deal breaker. The PlayStation could allegedly do stuff like that. But who knows what the frame rate is. That's also one of those other things I kind of laugh. Like, oh yeah, it'll be 4K 60 frames. And then you see just like horror story after horror story of it like, oh yeah, it'll dip down to like 12 frames in some games. I'm like, yeah, it's good for you. I don't think I'll ever do that. No thanks. Yeah. I mean, they were trying to push that with the what was it? The Stadia? Remember that, chat? No longer in the year 2023. Service discontinued. Yeah, I'm like, just give me the steady 60. I'm like, listen, I barely watch my videos in 720 on PC. I'm like, I don't need it to go to like 4K. It's fine. Nice, got that glass. Yeah, and it's just like, I don't know. It's just one of those things where I feel like the price point is close enough, but now we're talking about like comparing 2023 to like 20 years ago. You have like such a massive library. You have so many like strong emulators. I could play anything from like Game Boy, Dreamcast, PlayStation 2, like all the games that I grew up on, but I don't need to have 3K worth of consoles. I mean, like, you know, the longer you go into the future, the more PC gaming just looks like the correct way. Especially now that, like, there's very few console exclusives. Like, honestly, I think there was what was it? They had, like, 3 total PlayStation exclusives? Or, like, I go on the Switch, and I'm like, okay, what on their store is the most popular game? And, like, 90% of the top 100 or so were literally games that you get on Steam. Yeah, it's like Nintendo has like probably the biggest library of things that are exclusive to their console, like your Mario games, some Metroid games. But like Xbox versus like PlayStation in 2023, I'm like, okay, I could just play all your games on PC. You know, I think we're moving out of the era of really atrocious ports. Like, that was also a big consideration 10 years ago compared to, like, today, where there would just be such bad PC ports, where they were clearly meant to be for console, and they just shoved out a version, so to speak. Not to say it won't happen today, or that it can't happen. Yeah, we can PB in the next turn, it's fine. Oh, nice. You two are going to play Way Out. Hopefully you have fun. I mean, like, I guess to prove the point, I'm playing PSO, an enhanced version, over the GameCube version on PC. And I'm enjoying the quality of life features when people are allowed to mod things. But we'll see how it goes. Hopefully that game goes well. I read a little bit about it, because Calvisha mentioned it the other day. A 2-player... I don't want to put the word puzzle in it, but definitely a cooperative game. The intent that 2 players need to get out of prison, I believe. Yeah, exactly. So, like, Calvisham's story is very specific to Brazil. I'm not gonna say it's, you know, or not. Ugh, I'm tongue-tied. I said Brazil, but in terms of just like there will be some countries that go through it, but in terms of like U.S., maybe England, Canada, just I don't know if they would have those kinds of issues. I would say maybe some Latin American countries. You predict Volt would maybe have some tariff issues. Already still, but that's what I was saying, Shaky. The price is the same, at least in the US. Like, that's what I was just talking about. If I want to play with 4 players, it's cheaper for me to get PC than it is to get a Switch with all the controllers. Like, that was the whole point. The Switch was, like, the cheapest console, and it was still ridiculous with the controllers, how expensive that was. Whereas I could just get anything. They could bring in whatever they want from their other systems. And I save a whole bunch of money. I mean, heck, I was using PS2 controllers on PC for a while, and then I switched to PS3. So, like, anything from without needing to get the same console that somebody else has, without needing to worry about that. Whatever they have is fine. Or if I just want cheap PC controllers, there's like $19 controllers. They work. I don't have to pay like the ludicrous $59.99 for a Switch controller. Literally as expensive as games. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think that's more of like that's going more into personal convenience. I don't think even it's in the long term, it's definitely cheaper for PC. Yeah, controllers cost more than games here. Exactly. Like it depends. Like if you get it with the cables in particular, then it's definitely more expensive. Yeah, it's just so ridiculous. So, like, I feel like the thing where you're saying that you're not needing to swap the internal hardware, update software, that equivalency is you switching from PlayStation 4 to PlayStation 5, Shaky. That's exactly what I'm talking about. Like, you're doing it. It's called something different. It's called getting a new console. But a lot of the problems with how it is coming into the modern gaming society is that we're no longer doing things that are backwards compatible. What I usually do with the PC is try to get the most expensive one and let me start 5-10 years. Exactly, Calvisham. Like, I can have one that is just going to be more stable, and I don't need to worry about things like the Blu-ray player dying. That happened to me on my PS3s. I don't have to worry about, like, the disc burn or, like, all sorts of other working parts compared to the PC. Is that something I'm gonna have to deal with at some point with the PS3s? It's gonna be a total mess. But yeah, it's just, like, I've had this computer forever at this point, almost since I started streaming. Oops, let's get rid of this. So, it's just, I don't know. I just don't find the appeal of the console. I don't want to pay like $600 and then, you know, if I use the online store and the online store is eventually taken down, I just lose access to those games. If something happens to the account, I might not be able to recover it. Where there's just a lot of safety and redundancy in the PC. And since things are being built to be phased out, whereas like the PlayStation 2 and PS3 lasted for quite a long time, I don't think the same could be true between the PS4 and the PS5. I don't think the lifespan of those consoles so far have been like anywhere near what the earlier generations were. Because their intent is in 5 years we should be in a new console guaranteed. Whereas like the PS3 lasted quite some time, and in fact it went in parallel with the PS4 for quite a while. Where I remember things were like Tales of Berseria was being released on PS3 and PS4. We'll see where it goes from there. Okay, I'm gonna do a cull check. Let's see where we go. Yeah, it's like, you know, I don't want to be nickel and dime with like especially with the console games. Like, I'm already paying extra for controllers. They're gonna make me pay extra for online. They're gonna make me pay extra for, potentially just playing the game. They'll find ways to tack on charges. Lots of your live service games. I'm one coal shy. That is so depressing. just one, chat. So we'll do one more of these. But yeah, it's just the way like modern games in general have been shifting. I think it's like the other, because I said that was just one small part of why I don't go into console gaming anymore, but the other is definitely just the way development on these games occurs, the quality control, the absolutely ridiculous things over the past few years. And I'm not going to say that wasn't present prior to like the PS4 and PS5 era. I think in particular the PS3 era ended up ushering in a lot of bad things. Like that's where they were really starting to experiment with your microtransactions and shady processes. And like I remember, what was that joke of a Tony Hawk game that came out where on disc it was one level and then the rest of the game was a download. Do you remember that, chat? I don't even remember what the Tony Hawk number was, but like how different it is to take that kind of disc today. Yeah, people know what I'm talking about. If you've not heard about that, please go watch videos on it. It is amazingly terrible how bad that game was on release. Like, we might even watch it at the end of stream. I obviously I won't record it, but yeah, it is just hilariously terrible. Like what they can get away with is just ridiculous. So I guess I'll do Rock Solstice, and this will be the last Solstice of the event. Yeah, they did it, like, it was, like, so bad. Like, people were, like, showing videos of them clipping in and out of, like, walls and all sorts of nonsense. I forget what, yeah, $70 tutorial of the entire game is DLC, exactly. It was, like, literally one level, and then just, it would not work unless you had the DLC. So it's like a lot of those like on-disc DLC shenanigans with your Street Fighter Cross Tekken scandals and just, I don't know. I don't trust them at this point. And that's not to say games were not buggy prior to the PS3 either. They were very buggy. But the difference is like I had what would be considered a completed product in a very, very, very large majority of these games. Whereas, like, you could go back and you can look at where they were doing some really shady practices. I don't remember which Tony Hawk game it is. Maybe somebody in the chat can clarify. It was on, I think, PS4, right? It wasn't that long ago, I'll put it that way. It was after Underground 2. Whatever they called it. Might be Tony Hawk Skate or something. Had, like, an odd name. Yeah, it was not that long ago. I'm gonna put it that way. If chat does not know the name of the game, I will look it up later. Just that way people, if they hear this, yeah, I don't remember the name either. I obviously did not want to purchase it when I saw stuff on it. I was like, oh my gosh. Yeah, the Street Fighter Cross Tekken's on disc DLC, disgusting. Or don't forget it, you know, so in particular, How the Mighty Have Fallen. That would be the big part. So where I was already naming series I don't want to play. But even for the people that are still redoing like some of those series, I just don't like the business practices. Like remember that whole thing with the Shura's Wrath chat several years ago, where you didn't get the ending of the game unless you got the DLC? Do you remember that? I'm not saying like it was on disc. It just literally they didn't complete the story, and you had to get the DLC to complete the story. Oh yeah, Capcom in particular has done some crazy shady stuff. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, there's all these you could probably just Google right now, and it's like they're like, want to see the ending? Pay $19.99. No joke. Okay, let me try to figure out the name of this Tony Hawk game. Was it Skate? I just need to see like a list of games. Like I could pick it out if I could see the list. It's not Pro Skater 1+2. Was it Skate Jam? I don't remember, chat. We'll look into this more later. I mean, I could try Tony Hawk's Scandal to see if I can get it there. I can't find it offhand, chat. There are too many Tony Hawk games. I don't think it was from 2022. That was too recent. Yeah, it just... Was it Pro Skater 5? Okay. Chat thinks it's Pro Skater 5. We'll verify, I think, in the break at some point. Yeah, I know it was after Underground 2. I couldn't remember if it was 5 or if they went back into one of the non-numbered series. And I remember less than stellar reviews for when they brought back Pro Skater 1 and 2. Yeah, it's just one of those things where I just feel, you know, the PS2 was kind of an end of an era where, you know, we got some really solid games. They were just starting to get into the technology. They're really starting to experiment with the game format. We came across a lot of quality of life features in the PS3 era where people realized that nobody really enjoyed some of the things that are in the classic games. And so they're like, just make it so you could do things like skip cutscenes more consistently. You know, if you're gonna do something story-based, you have to give the player some kind of out if they die. Then, you know, that ushers in the era of like auto-saving and all sorts of things that would not really prevalent before that point. That's not to say it's all bad, but I will say the business practices have gotten extremely atrocious. So I'm sure I don't need to name specific companies. I'm sure chat can think of literally just name a scandal in the last 2 years. But yeah, a lot of the ones that you would have maybe mentioned in the 90s are no longer, we'll say, quite as reputable for many reasons. So, kind of that disillusionment, unfortunately. Yeah, it's just kind of like, some of it has been like, that is the way things have always been to an extent. Like, you have to think back to like when arcade machines were more prevalent, where they had like just the ludicrously unfair difficulty, the quarter muncher games, they gotta get a profit somehow. That has just turned more into DLC and microtransactions. It is unfortunate, but it is what it is. I know, I think to me, I got very upset when I saw that applied to PSO in particular. That was a very big turnoff for me in PSO 2. Uh-oh, I got lined up with you. But oh well, such is life, I guess. I'll just go back and play the games I like. Oh my gosh, the premium currencies. Holy. But I mean, just like, look at how like they take away... I think that's what it is too. It's not like there weren't ways to take money from the player previously. But look how many things in previous series were removed from the game specifically to be paywalled, DLC, or otherwise like part of a live service or temporary change. Like even something as simple as just like player trading doesn't exist. How much they push the DLC exactly. Holy. Super bad for sure. Oh, speaking of super bad, my aim was super bad there. So we'll see. I think as we just continue to go in the future, eventually PC gaming will just be overall cheaper, if not exactly the same price as console gaming. And maybe they'll start changing their minds on how they start running some of these console games. I'm kind of tired of seeing like the endless years of FIFA and Madden. And that's not to say like games like those shouldn't be made, it's just that the quality of the product is just so hilariously, embarrassingly terrible. And they just keep getting away with the chat. Fans deserve so much better. So I think a big issue with coming into like the modern era is realizing just how much how disappointing and how much of a letdown those kinds of things happen to be. So you're a bit more wise with your money. I will always go back to Watch Dogs. I think Watch Dogs to me was the eye-opener, where I have never felt more scammed in a game, and I have never, ever pre-ordered ever since Watch Dogs. What an insane letdown. Ooh, I got bodied. This room spawns aren't too bad, at least. Actually. What am I doing? That's fine. It's like I swapped the frozen shooter by accident. Meant to use last one. Nice, got Mag Blast. Which devs will start to put out demos? Yeah, I think that's like where I'm coming into like the final part of like what pulls me into like the PC gaming over the console gaming. There are so many more demos on things like Steam. There are so many ways to download indie games, like on purpose, where they want to let you enjoy the game and get your feedback, where I don't feel like that's really true with the console gaming. I mean, there were, from what I recall when I played on the Switch, some free-to-play games, quote-unquote, on the Switch. But they felt kind of hollow, comparatively. Like that one Kirby game, the Kirby Clash, I think it was called. Where it had like those built-in mobile mechanics of the energy system. Like that kind of stuff. I'm not gonna miss that if it goes away. I'm not gonna have the fond memories like I would a PSO for those kinds of games, where I'm like, good riddance. I hope you stop trying to psychologically manipulate the viewers. I hope you get called out on it. You don't like the pre-release alpha thing. I mean, that's also an interesting counterpoint to what I just said. There are some definite abuses, I'm gonna revive you real quick, of that kind of system, in particular with Steam, where games are just forever in early access. I think that's a good counterpoint. So still a lot of discretion has to be applied. Oh gosh, I'm getting double hit. I'm maybe dead? Okay, I unstuck myself, we're good. Yeah, I mean, like, I'll even give an example off the top of my head. What's it? Legends of the Grindia? That game is, like, going to be infamous for me. That game has been in development forever. Chat, I think I watched, like, a GDQ 2010? I think it was 2010. Don't quote me on the exact year, but it was a while ago. And it was in early access. As of 2023, it's still in early access. I feel like it has been in development for 8 years minimum, upwards of 10. I will double check when we have a chance later. Like, I was laughing at it the other day, not because like it was like a scam, quote unquote, but like, you know how there's like devlogs and they have like your weekly updates? It was like in like 600 something. I'm gonna put it that way. Like, not weekly update number 53. It was in the 600s, chat. It was quite something. We'll take a look at that, I think, right before we go on our break. I want to go and reminisce about it. If that game ever actually gets released, I will try it, just out of pure curiosity. I know. I mean, it looked fun at the time, but like, you know, you gotta finish your game. You know, like there's a certain leniency you can have for people that are just like a 1-man, 2-man, 3-man team. But the moment you start charging people money for it, then it's like, well, the expectations have changed, right? You know, it's one thing if it's a pre-demo and it just never finished, or if it's one thing if it was just like a fraction of the base price to get early access to something. But if they're starting to charge, you know, like $39 for a game that is not even like halfway complete, you know, you gotta question these practices and where we are in general, that they're just allowed to get away with it. Yeah, exactly. Like if they are in like development hell and the thing is taking like 5 years, then of course like all of the, you know, general exception or expectations for a game, they're gonna go higher as time increases, both from the standpoint of like, oh, why did you take this long to do it, but also just like the quality of life. Like, look, I think PSO2 was a great example of that. You know, like they're bringing it over to like the US in like 2020 era, and they're bringing in like 2012 gaming mechanics. Like, we've moved past that as a society by like more than 5 years. Like, just the kludginess of the menus, the weird integration issues that game had on launch. I'm like, we moved past that. Like that, like, yes, I deserve to die from that, by the way, chat. I'm surprised that didn't kill me. All praise the 31% chance resist. I missed the bullet, but we're good now. But I mean, like, it just goes to show, like, if the game is just in there for development, it's not that it will eventually be good either. I think there was like an infamous quote that it's like, what was it, from the leader of Nintendo or some equivalency thereof? Oops. Something along the lines of like, a rushed game will never be good, which is like the essence of the quote. Yeah, Miyamoto, thank you. I couldn't remember if it was Miyamoto specifically or just somebody else within the Nintendo company, like a spokesperson. Yeah, we're gonna go take a look at that. And like, no, like, not to bash on the game per se, but just to say, like, these are things that, like, in the SNES, PlayStation 1 era are just completely unheard of. Completely unheard of. Like, normally if a game goes on that long, it ends up on like a YouTube history, how did it happen or what happened video. Like your Duke Nukem Forever, for example. Like, they become infamous if they got to that level. But with Steam, that's a bit more common. I'm double checking right now one thing, chat. I am opening up the dev blog right now, chat. It started in 2011, so I was close. It started in 2011. It's still going into it. It is... Oh, I'm sorry. I exaggerated slightly. They're on update number 539. My bad, chat. It was not 2010. It was 2011. It was the choice, I guess. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Oh, I meant to ask Calvisham, how was Vagrant's story going while we're on a long tangent? I have never played that game before, so you were my first introduction to the game. Well, I mean, like, that, I'm kind of going into what Calvisham is saying there, where you can patch the game later is a little bit of lazy thing. Well, I mean, like, why are you in a... So, from their standpoint, why would they be in a rush to finish the game if people are already buying it? Like, gotcha. So, with that philosophy, I don't pre-order anything, because I don't feel like most games are complete on release. There's so many game-breaking bugs that the game is just, like, not playable. Even for series that I like. Like, I like the East series, but I could never tell you to ever get one of those games within the first couple of months of release, even to support the developers. Like, the game is, like, quasi-unplayable on certain consoles or lower-end PCs. Like, when you're trying to make your PC price literally compete with the console, they're not able to deal with it due to, like, poor optimization. So, you know, those issues do exist, and it's just unfortunate. But it is definitely the mindset of the modern gaming industry. Also, I got bodied by that. Are we lined up or something? We are lined up. Oh my god, you're getting killed. Help me. I can't defend myself. Oh no, I couldn't spread needle at all. I got the destroyed. Okay, I think we're good. And Chris has killed the threat. Yeah, I got immediately knocked down into bulk ball, so I legit could not move at all. But fortunately I had a die mate, so I didn't die. It is fun, but I made the mistake of overconfidence. I mean, with the broken release, it's not really the early access thing. Yeah. There's just a lot of games that are not working on, like, even in general. Like, I don't know. Did I ever tell chat any of my stories about Saints Row? Those games were like horror stories, honestly. Oops. There are too many targets, unfortunately. Like, seriously, those are some of the most buggy games I have ever played. And, like, we have bugged and glitched out East, but compared to Saints Row, Saints Row was on its whole new tier, chat. I have never had a game break so thoroughly before. And not because, like, I was doing anything on purpose. It would not function properly at all. Like, it's crazy how bad some of those games were, and why I don't go for a lot of the modern games anymore in the series. Like, I grew up playing, like, the GTA 2, GTA 3, but, like, those style of games have let me down with the just absolutely horrendous quality control. I just had enough of it. Well, given I don't see people saying that I've talked about it before, I will talk. Oh, Cyberpunk. We'll get to Cyberpunk in a bit, but I think when it comes to, actually, I have Mag Blast, by the way, Chris. When it comes to Saints Row, let me tell you my story with Saints Row 3. This game was so broken on my console. So broken. I had to uninstall the game and reinstall the game mid-playthrough in order to advance the plot. I have never had to do that for any other game that I've ever played. A legit clean uninstall into reinstall to fix it. So what happened? Well, if people are somewhat familiar with those style games, generally speaking, they don't let you get to like what would be the equivalent of max FBI or max army rating. And normally there's story triggers that'll open it up. So like in your GTA 3, you unlock a new island to visit, quote unquote. You get another 100-star potential. Saints Row 3 broke so hard, the game forgot what state I was in. So I was at the end of the game. There was a scene where a plane crashes, and it's supposed to introduce a whole bunch of people. And instead of seeing the special forces, it was down to like just civilian cops. And it was like a really confusing mix because the game forgot a certain district of the game was destroyed. So there was like zombie characters, regular civilians, and regular cops, where they're supposed to be like super beings at that point. The game was so broken. Welcome, Charlie. Hope you're doing well. I'm telling him about the horror stories of Saints Row and why I don't play those games anymore. I think my favorite, though, is that I played that game in co-op, because I'm not sure if people were aware, but it had co-op on the console. And, wow, boy oh boy, I had not one but two literally incompletable missions. I had to quit the mission and completely restart. I essentially got soft locked by the game. Not getting, like, stuck out of bounds, but, like, the cutscenes would not trigger. So I'll give an example. Try not to go into hyper spoilers here. But at the very end of the game, there's a mission where at one point you're supposed to deal with a person in like a fighter jet, essentially. And normally when you defeat that boss, the jet goes down and something is supposed to play. But because that game was coded with such jank, if your console did not run at the right frame rate, it would skip that cutscene and you cannot beat the mission. So you could crash the jet, you could blow up the jet, but you can't win the mission. And in fact, at one point, I was so confused as to what it wanted me to do that I actually at one point managed to get on the jet when it was on its glitched out state. And I removed the boss from the fighter jet. And funny enough, the game realized that the boss shouldn't have been killable that way. So the boss was just walking around, completely invincible to damage. It would like jiggle a little, like if they got hit. So they reacted in that way, but they were clearly not taking damage. And it was funny because if you did like a death blow on them, they would just kind of rise up like the Terminator and just keep walking after you. And then I just embraced death. I let the enemy eventually come up to me and insta-kill me. So fun fact, I don't know if you know, that boss apparently has an insta-kill at high difficulties. It's never supposed to do it, but you know. Saints Row. I think in most open world games that I've played, at least at one point, I have clipped completely through the earth. Has Chad ever had that happen? I think the first time that happened to me was True Crime Streets of LA. Literally just like going through an intersection and my car decided that instead of the four-way intersection of going left or right, that straight down was the direction I wanted to go. So I fell through the earth. That happened to me 4 different times in Saints Row 3, by the way. It was like getting sad to the point that I could almost replicate it. I was like, oh my gosh, is this happening again when I'm in a taxi cab? Why are the taxi cabs clipping me out of the universe? I just avoided taxi cabs. It stopped happening. So, I don't know. Just absolute silliness. Hope you're doing well, Charlie. I'm just on a rambly tangent. But yeah, it just, you know, when it comes to those kinds of open world games, from like something I grew up on in the early PS3 days compared to the late PS3 days compared to where it is today, I just don't trust the companies. And I think Calvisham nailed it would be the modern equivalent. You know, Street Fighter Cross Tekken too old from the standpoint of what people would probably remember. That Cyberpunk 77? Oof. What a brutal release of a game. Absolutely brutal. Unplayable older console versions of it. Clearly glitched out everything, missing features. A lot of things that you would assume would be in the game because it's based off of your like typical Grand Theft Auto kind of template kind of game just didn't exist. Like the easiest one I can think of offhand, even though I didn't play the game, would be cop chases. They didn't really chase you in cars. They just very cheaply teleported behind you, or whenever you looked away, they would just suddenly exist in the room. I remember seeing that clown car nonsense in Grand Theft Auto 4, and that's ultimately what made me stop playing the Grand Theft Auto series, as I also got super tired of that. Yeah, like, I feel like the studio went from, like, one of the most beloved can do no wrong after releasing The Witcher 3 to just, like, one of the most reviled. Like, honestly, that release was, like, generation-defining with how awful that was. And, like, people now are starting to say that they're having fun with it, now that it's a bit more feature-complete, but it's like... I'm not falling for that kind of stuff anymore, chat. Like, I am too old and too jaded at this point. This is gonna shake my head. Like, no. Just remember Watch Dogs. remember those E3 trailers where all those graphics and stuff were showcased. That, oh, you know, this is gameplay. Look at what you could do in the game, and then like literally nothing in that trailer you could do. They removed it. Ridiculous. Also, what a room. It just... And, like, I want to be more supportive of when they're trying to bring back these retro games. And a lot of it is... Glad you have Spread Needle, yeah. A lot of it is, like, I want to support the company, but at the same time, like... They're taking those kinds of shortcuts in the modern games where I just, you know, I like a series, but I just don't like what they did, what they included in it. I think, like, the easiest one that would be more relatable, I would say, to most people would be, like, the Final Fantasy Pixel remasters. Holy, the Final Fantasy 1 one was so bad. I don't know how anybody thinks that's acceptable. Those, like, mobile phone fonts, the weird... disparity of like the 3D movement of the water with the 2D-ish sprites. I was like, wow, I expect to see this in like early 2005, not like from a game from like a year ago. It looks so bad. And like, it's a pixel remaster, but it's like blurry. Like they anti-alias certain things. It's just like, really? This is the remaster? Are you sure? Oh, ActRaiser. Oh, the revival of that series was so disappointing. I really liked ActRaiser. Suikoden 1 and 2. They were re-releasing from Konami. And I didn't like any of the menus. And like, considering a lot of that game is looking at the menus and making sure the actions go through, if you don't like what you're looking at in combat, I'm like, I didn't like the sound effect remasters either. I was just like, wow, I'm really struggling. I didn't like most of the portraits. I thought it was really weird that you have like this really high contrast like dungeon, and then you have like this really awkward and just really poorly shaded, like, 2D sprite for the characters. It's, like, such a mismatch of styles. It just, you know, if we're gonna talk about remastering it, like, just do it right. Like, be consistent. Vagrant Stories is the same world as Final Fantasy Tactics. Interesting. So it's like, I just find it very, I don't know. I can't really stomach those when I look at it. When I'm like, when you can't find ways to just give a quality of life to a game that is like 20-something years old, that's an RPG specifically, it's just like, what are you doing as a game company? Like, come on. You can't figure out a way to update it? You know, some companies get it, you know, well, even sometimes the same company gets it a little more right. Poor Chris, he's getting murdered by lilies. Like, I feel like probably the Castlevania collection games, while not really offering anything substantial, I feel like they're in a complete enough package that it would introduce it to a new audience. There are some changes in there that I think are beneficial, that, you know, don't impact the core gameplay. Like, for example, your bestiaries or like a relic tracker. And you have the option to remove them, like if you find the monster name annoying popping up as you fight. Like, they did some, you know, it's your choice whether or not to accept it, and you can choose whether or not to take in their, you know, HD sounds or whatever. You can play it completely the way it was, you know, created, as it were. But this time on a new console or a PC, depending on where you get it from. And I think things like that were definitely better of nature. But when they start touching like the graphics or the look of the game, like they really gotta nail it down. And I just feel like a lot of the time they outsource it to like their, I'm gonna say their C team. Like a lot of the teams that work on the mobile versions of games will be pulled into these, and it ends up looking like a mobile game instead of like the game you knew once and grew up with. Once there's some remaster, company just uses kind of emulator filter on the game and call it kind of done. Are you thinking of the Grand Theft Auto quote-unquote remasters? Because that's another great point, where they took all the textures through a very simple filter rather than actually taking the time to model the characters. So you had things like words on a sign just become unintelligible blurs, or they did replace it with letters that were legible, but because they used like an AI to do it, the signs no longer made any sense. Like, it was just gibberish. Oh, I actually leveled with this character. Nice. 4 attack, 1 accuracy. I think I'm at max accuracy. Okay. Decent level for me. Yeah, like the Grand Theft Auto remaster was pretty infamous as well. I think that's a more recent example than Cyberpunk. But I mean, like, it's just what they keep getting away with. People just pre-order. They don't wait for the reviews. They don't wait for proof the game isn't just like a total scam. And they just keep getting away with it, chat. just hopefully one day you can educate people that you know and tell them don't do that. You have to be like an ultra diehard to even consider it. Like, I know there are people that love like collectibles, so they'll do it for like a plush collectible, or maybe they want the music disc that comes with the game for like a console only release. Like, there's sometimes a reason outside of the game that they would do so, but just I can't justify it for just the game itself. It's me, says Chris. Poor Chris. Like, I've gotten, like, if I have played a game before, like, I'll give an example where I have technically done that. I got a special edition of Radiant Historia, and that's because I played, not because, like, I went in blind and then got the special edition. I played it when it was out on the earlier systems, then I played the 3DS version, and I went, you know what? I like the core game. It would be very difficult to mess this up, so I'm willing to take that kind of risk for it. Ultimately, you know, I enjoyed the art book that came with it and some of the songs. Was it necessary? No. But I did like the game. Could I do that for like a random Tales game nowadays? Could I do it for a random Capcom game? Probably never. I don't know what they would even tempt me with. Well, anyway, we're almost done with the quest at least. We're so close, chat. We're so close. I forget if I mentioned it on stream, but I did eventually cancel. I got a very brief Switch Online subscription. Mostly because I wanted to play with friends online, and then I was like, you know what? This is really just not worth it. So they got a month's worth of my money. I gave up on it. Pig wrapping, indeed. There are a few companies that have Sell My Trust list still on pre-order. I mean, that's a good example. I mean, a lot of people would say, like, you know, maybe they really like Atlas games, for example. Or maybe they really like the Dark Souls series. And that's like a safe early purchase from them. I just don't feel that way about a lot of series that I play anymore. Even for games that I do like, as I said before, like these. No trust. Oh, one last quest. Come on, we can do it. Almost done. Then we'll go for crazy. Maybe we'll do TTF runs so we can get a red ring for Chris. We'll fish for it. Those are very easy games to get a public game going for. Almost everybody wants to do TTF, especially if I play Viridian. Look out for bugs. I don't care much about the game is good or not part of the reviews. I'm a mix of it. Like, I'll give an example where they had a... Oh, Hildator? Hold on 1 second. You gonna give me a frozen shooter? You gonna give me a frozen shooter? You gonna kill Chris and not give him a frozen shooter? Okay. Oh, I did get a frozen shooter. Nice. Didn't come with any hit percentage, though. But I'll take it. So, an example would be Legend of Mana, where I was very on the fence whether or not I wanted to get the remaster, because Square in particular is on my list of extreme discretion whether or not I want to get a game with them. For a while, they were straight up banned. Like, I had enough of their games. I don't feel like the quality was there. But from the standpoint of, you know, maybe they'll do okay-ish on Legend of Mana, and then, like, all I read about are all these weird frame rate issues, and they put in, like, this anti-cheat software, and I'm like, how do you get a PS1 game to lag on a modern computer? How do you do that? Like, you could emulate that on most computers without lag issues. And I'm like, this is supposed to be the improved product? I'm like, I would have liked to have showcased, like, skipping random battles and all the other things they added in there. I couldn't find out, for example, because of course, why would they put that on their store page to advertise those kinds of features? But, you know, there were a lot of references to stuff that were on your memory card in the PS1 era. And when you go to look at the re-release of it, there's, like, not a single statement on their page as to what they replaced it with anything. So, for example, you could take your memory card in Legend of Mana and save your character data on it and join with your character data into another player's game. Or, if you had, I think it was Final Fantasy VIII, you could replace the normal rabbit with a chocobo monster if you had Saga Frontier 2, you can unlock another boss and things of that nature. And I forget if there was one for Chocobo Racing. There might have been. I have to double check. It's been a while since I played. But you get the drift. There's a lot of connection between it and the style of game it used to be played on, as in the memory cards. So, you know, you also have to be kind of wary with some of the remasters for some things you may or may not realize you would be missing. So it can be really hard to go through and do that. I'm hoping, you know, if they're doing the Suikoden 1 and Suikoden 2 release, they let you port over the data and they fix some of the bugs. Like, remember the naming bug in Suikoden 1 and Suikoden 2? But then it also leaves it open to question, are they going to be able to do that for, like, if they ever want to do a Suikoden 3, or is that it? Yeah, good old Tickdoll. Yeah, I just think when it comes to, like, the modern gaming society, a lot of it has come down to the business philosophy of what is the minimum lovable product. It's all about the bottom line. It's not about delivering necessarily a complete game. It's about seeing how much you could make from a particular flagship series. And while, you know, that should be the goal to some extent of anytime you run a company, when that is, like, the only driving factor of it, it just gets a little tedious. I mean, like, how many people complained about games like, what was it? The Tom Clancy game that was, like, barely alive for a year? So chock full of live services and stuff like that. Like, people are getting tired of those. They don't want to play, like, another Anthem or whatever it was called. Like, they're like, nobody wants to sit there and hear about, oh, how great things will be in 2 years, when your base game is terrible. Nobody wants to play those. You know, it's one thing if it's, like, good but not quite long enough and you expand upon it. Like, I could almost see that as an argument for something like Hades. Or an actual example would be like Binding of Isaac, where the core game is playable as is. It has a defined ending, it has a cycle, and it had ways to improve it, and you could add extra challenge and extra characters via the DLC. Like, that kind of stuff is fine. I want to promote that kind of stuff where it just adds to the gameplay, whereas as opposed to things where the features clearly siphoned out of the gameplay. Like, I'll give an example of a feature removed from gameplay. PSO2 removing trading unless you paid money to be a premium member. Three will depend on 1 and 2. Probably. And that's where I feel kind of sad, because I'm like, I don't really like the game the way it is. Come back, Chris. You're getting Scape Dolls. If you think it's Falls, you're getting 2 Scape Dolls, and you're gonna live with them. Losing trading was incredibly dumb. Yeah, it's just like, it's not player-friendly, it's corporation-friendly changes. Oh, you talk to the machine? Oh, then you're just dead then. Rest in peace, Chris. I will pick up at least one of these. So goodbye, one of the Scape Dolls. Oh, I canceled the... Oh, that's right. It's no by default. Of course it is. Dragon again. Yeah, I played a little bit of Witcher 3. It's not quite what I thought it was, so I have not touched it since I played it once. I was like, oh. Also, that game had crazy performance issues. I don't know what was going on with it. I played it very briefly on PC, and I was like, what? Like, maybe it's a little better now, but ooh. Remember when I first ran it, I was having like weird choppiness. But it is what it is. I'm sure, I mean, it's been like, what, maybe 3 years since I tried it? It's possible it's fixed. How many times do I have to teach you this lesson, old man? You say to the dragon. Apparently, not enough. It's okay. I think we're done with this particular section, so we're gonna go ahead, turn in the final present, earn vehicle, and then I guess we take a short break. Because we've been playing for at least 2 hours. One second. Yeah, I mean, like, you know, for every story I bring up, for every game I bring up, I mean, there's usually a success story. Like, it's not like every modern game is terrible. I know a lot of people, I think if Try's here, Try would enjoy the Monster Hunter series. I think it's generally been on an upwards trend, or like Resident Evil has generally been on an upwards trend. That music just away. So, I mean, like, it just depends. But unfortunately, a lot of those series I used to play just are not really supported anymore. I mean, I'll re-roll this at least to 15% if I'm gonna give this to somebody. Thank you. Well, I have a spare frozen shooter now. Okay. I can't believe this character actually managed to level again. That feels pretty good, actually. Oh, I didn't restock moons. That's fine. I could do that later. I usually check the beginning of the mission anyway. It's okay. Final present of the 40 coal-a-thon, I guess. And then we're gonna play some TTF. Maybe if we're feeling up to it, we'll do some Respective tomorrow. Although I do want to showcase the changed character at some point. So I'm probably going to bring them in. But here we go, chat. Moment of truth. Were all those quests worth it? Let me roll my fingers on the keyboard. The classic name generation. Nominated is most of my favorite series. I don't want them back. I mean, you know, I could be hopeful. Maybe the Shadow Hearts creator will deliver a good RPG. Maybe. Maybe. Let's see where it goes. We'll keep an eye on it. Oh, I forgot to actually start the quest. Whoops. I mean, I got the coal I needed, but... Okay, what are we gonna get? Thank you, Try, for giving the shout out to Calvisham. I was just talking about you, actually. You might even heard me say your name. We very briefly mentioned Monster Hunter. Don't need anything from that. Oh, you missed it? We're saying not all series that are being continued are bad, because we're talking about a lot of like horror story series. I was saying, if Try was here, he'd probably say he's been enjoying Monster Hunter. That so far has been going well. Alright, chat. Final present of the event, potentially. So chat, should we have a bet? What color paint do you think this is gonna be? See, Try's at 200 hours now. He's having a good time. Try and Monster Hunter are almost the same thing. Calvisham calling him out. There we go, chat. Pick a color. Chat's okay. There's one guess for yellow. Do you think it'll give me blue, white, black, red? Well, no, I don't think it could give me red. I don't think red is possible. Maybe purple is one of them. let's see. Or if we manage to not get paint, that'll be the biggest surprise of the session. Anyway, we've been hyping it up. Chaos Mania says blue. We got red. I think red is banned because it's from Red Ring. I don't think it allows it. I know. I said red too, and then I went, wait, I don't think you can make the Red Ring red with red paint. You have to use removal or something. But anyway. Moment of truth. He says black. Okay. Halloween cookie. Oh, that's a plot twist. I was not expecting that. Well, let's take a look at the bank to see how much we received. I mean, that's a decent reward. I'll give it that. For the final potential present of the entire event, it wasn't bad. Yeah, I knew they could... Okay, so we got... So from this event, we received black, white, and blue paint, so... Chat would have been close. We've been collecting all the paints. One of my other characters has more paints. I don't know where it is. Speaking of which, where is the cookie? So I'm up to 6 cookies. Are the cookies black? It doesn't really have a graphic for them, unfortunately. Yeah, it's not bad. Hopefully you're doing well, Chaos Mania. Oh, by the way, Chaos Mania, just let me know if you ever wanted to join in with what we were doing, by the way. You had expressed interest, I think, in a different stream. I spent a lot of time prior to this stream helping some new players, and then I ended up playing with Chris afterwards. So we have a ton of stuff from the event, but I can officially say this is the last event quest. Can't play today? No worries. We'll find out sometime, Chaos Mania. We'll get you all caught up. So let's give a little summary and sign off for YouTube, as we're gonna go on a short break here, not too long, and we're gonna resume. I mostly just want to get a drink. So how do we feel the session went? Well, we went on very long tangents, and by we it was mostly me, about video games and why I'm not really excited for console gaming. I think we're at the point where, you know, we're having fun with Ephinea. We're gonna be playing more, probably starting next week in terms of game variety. But from the standpoint of what we have, you know, we didn't get like the craziest drops ever in presents, but Halloween Cookie wasn't a terrible way to end the event in terms of the solstices anyway. So we're gonna switch over to focusing on different quest types and different characters. But it was nice to play the Ramarl, who I don't think I had played pretty much at all for the longest period of time. Like, I might have used them in, like, 1, maybe 2 quests the entire year last year. I mostly played as other characters, to my recollection. Mostly forces. So it's nice to mix it up a little bit in terms of what I use today. But I think we're at the conclusion of this particular arc. So, potentially final present, but definitely the final present from Cole related to this event. So, with that, we're gonna go on break. But YouTube, unfortunately, we're gonna have to say goodbye to you for now. So if you got to this point in the video or the VOD, I'd just like to thank you for watching and hope to see you again next time.